Okay, this should hopefully clear up a few things. I haven't seen this question occur very much recently, which is probably a good thing, and I'll explain why in a second. But the question is, how do you pair injectors if you're running a semi-sequential injection system? So if you've got a standard inline 6, 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4, and you've got 3 injector outputs instead of 6, then how should you pair the injectors? And the answer comes down to whether or not you can fire them every 720 degrees, or if you have to fire them every 360 degrees. If you're firing them every 720 degrees, that means you can fire the injector once per cycle, and that means that for a start, you can get the latest information possible to inject the right amount of fuel. And it also means that because you're only firing the injector once, then the uncertainty due to the dead time will be half as big. So if you're firing it twice per cycle, effectively you're doubling the dead time, if you like. You're halving your injector accuracy. And it also means that if you're firing it at twice in the sequence, then one of them is going to be the wrong value in a transient event, but I'll explain that in a second. Let's say we're right where we can fire cylinder 1. We should also fire cylinder 5 at the same time, so that when cylinder 5 comes around as the next one, the fuel's there ready for it. So there are 2 ways to do it. There's 1 and 5, 3 and 6, and 2 and 4, and pair them together, and then fire them fire each of those every 720 degrees. So that means there'll be 240 degrees in between each one. So maybe I'll just put a fully sequential system would have 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. But instead, if we were going to pair them, we'll fire 1 and 5 when we would have fired 1, and we won't fire anything there. 3 and 6, we'll fire 1 we would have fired 3, and then we won't fire anything this one, 2 and 4. And this is the way that if you look at most of the Japanese cars from the 90s that weren't sequential, so that's some of the Toyotas and some of the Mazdas. As far as I know, this one was sequential with everything good on them. But yeah, like the Toyota 1U ZFE, obviously not a 6-cylinder, but same principle. And the Mazda V6 engines, that sort of thing. They all do it this way. Now, you could also, instead of pairing those 2, you could pair those 2. So instead of that, you could have 1 and 4 there, and then 6 and 2, and 5 and 3, and then offset the firing by 120 degrees. And that would be just as valid and work just as well. Now, the only reason not to do this is if you don't have a cam sensor. But if you don't have a cam sensor, then your only option is to fire them every 360 degrees. And in that case, you'd be firing this one and the one 360 degrees out of phase in the cycle. And the other way you can think of that is because an inline 6 is in primary balance, the crankshaft is symmetrical. So whichever one you've got, the one opposite that. So 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, and 4. So 1 and 6 fire here, 2 and 5 fire here, 3 and 4 fire here, then 1 and 6 fire again, so that's the second time in the cycle. 2 and 5 fire here, so that's the second time in the cycle. 3 and 4 fire here, that's the second time in the cycle. Now this is actually the same way that you'd pair up ignition outputs if you're trying to run them waste spark, because same thing applies, you're trying to fire them every 360 degrees. So the downside with this is, as I mentioned before, you're firing twice per cycle, which means that you're effectively doubling the error due to the dead time. But it also means that because each pulse is only delivering half the fuel, if say the engine's going through that sequence, and when we snap open the throttle, what it means is that when we get to this one here to fire this, we're delivering half the amount of fuel for number 3 because we delivered the other half back here before it came around, which means that when we now calculate the new amount of fuel, it's going to be wrong because that's only going to account for half the difference, not the full difference. Yes, you can get around that with more acceleration enrichment and other band-aids, but it's not nice. So, like I said before, I haven't seen this question come up a lot recently, which is probably a good thing. And here are the reasons why I would recommend not doing this. So first of all, the benefits of going a single output per injector is when you've got identical timing for each cylinder. So you're not having one of them that's a little bit before the other or something like that. Like every cylinder's going to the same one. It's also what we call the latest or the best calculation per cylinder as well. And if you look at my other if you look at my other videos on transient throttle stuff, you want to get the most recent up-to-date information when you're calculating the fuel duration if you want the best throttle response. So that's another reason why, let's say here, reasons for full sequential. So that'll just give you the best drivability to do it that way. And all the adults do it that way. They've, for quite a long time now, every OEM has been doing it this way. Some of the other reasons, which are a bit probably less obvious, is you can have individual cylinder trims. So you can make a change to one cylinder and only affects that cylinder. Another one is that you can do individual cylinder fuel shutoff. So if you're doing something like, if you've got an EGT safety thing, so if one of the cylinders is about to cook, and you want to shut off the fuel to just that cylinder, you can only do that if you've got individual control of that cylinder. And then the last reason, which I also really like, is you can detect open circuits. And by that I just mean if you've got the output from the ECU and you've got two injectors connected to it in parallel, then the ECU can't detect if there's an open circuit if one of those gets unplugged or disappears, because there's still current flowing through the other one. Yes, you could muck around with current thresholds and that sort of thing, but these things are inductive. They don't draw the same current all the time. So you can very easily detect an open circuit if you've got a separate injector per output. So yeah, in summary, that's how you do it if you have to, but it'd be really nice if you don't have to. Thanks everyone.